Good morning. This is Ron. It is Monday, July the 9th. Welcome to Storytime. Thank you, thank you, thank you. This is Ron, your host, the only true conservative in the United States of America, and speaking to all the butchers, bakers, and candlestick makers. One of the things that I noticed was today was looking at the whole way that the left influences our culture beginning to end. Usually, it's going to start with a philosophy. A philosophical theory. So a lefty sits down and says, okay, I want to come up with, let's say, the idea that there is no reality. There's no such thing as reality. And so then how do you get the culture to absorb that, to go ahead and go along with the fiction that there is no reality? What then ends up happening is you end up getting pop culture books. People that read will read the philosophy. Look at this. This is a new trend, and then write a pop culture books. Then you'll end up with people that will take the pop culture books and distill them down into bumper sticker slogans and phrases. So, for instance, one of the ways that where it got to the point in our society where we quit judging, and we have to judge. There's no doubt about it. It's a fact of life. You have to make judgment calls each and every day, whether it is about a person or a situation. You've got to judge. Okay, but you'll hear from the left, don't judge, don't judge. And also, by the way, I think one of the best answers to that one, if you're on your own property and you get a lefty that says don't judge, just tell them you're ugly or you're stupid. That's the best one. But anyhow, so the way they got it to come home, to drive it home, is to use it in a therapeutic sense. So they came up with this little slogan called "shoulding" on yourself, because judgment comes down to one word: should. I should do this, or I should have done XYZ. So they figure if they can get people to quit judging themselves, then they can get people to quit judging each other. And in so doing, by the whole purpose of getting people to quit judging is to make them better followers, so that they will take orders from their leaders. That's another good reason to continue judging. I'm not your follower. You're not my leader. I'm going to do as I see fit. So, but anyways, the way they did it therapeutically was to tell people, oh, there you go. You're shoulding on yourself again. Pop psychology. So people would, and I've heard it many times myself, where I said, oh, damn, I should have done X, Y, Z. And then somebody is standing within earshot will say, oh, you're shoulding on yourself. You're shoulding on yourself. So, and the idea then is, if I'm not going to judge myself, well, I'm not going to have the temerity to judge anybody else either. So that's basically the way it ends up going. Another way that it gets spread is through the use of celebrities, to go and get and influence a celebrity to change their behavior in certain ways, shapes, or form, or to sloganeer, proffer certain slogans in order to make this particular change popular in nature. So, ladies and gentlemen, should on yourself. Should on yourself, should on everybody else too. The only thing that you should do, though, is be prepared to admit that you're wrong. That's the only thing you need to do. Judge. Feel free to judge. Doesn't mean you always want to open your mouth and say, oh, boy, that dress looks crappy on you, or whatever. It's okay. You're not in a position to do that. It's not a good idea. It's not polite. Don't do it. Okay, but you can think, oh my God, that's horrible. Maybe tell your friends, God, that's just horrible. Okay, yeah, have judgment, but be prepared to admit that you're wrong. Especially when it comes to character or personality issues. You may look at somebody who's got tattoos, or they're dressed a certain way or whatnot, and you say, oh, I don't think so. I don't think we're going to get along. And when you do get along, be prepared to admit, gee, I was wrong about this person. I've had it happen to me more than once. One time in a work situation where somebody I thought I wasn't going to get along with turned out to be one of the easiest people to work with that I've ever worked with. So, like I said, should, but be prepared to admit that you're wrong. Okay, when I come back, we're going to be into a little bit of Tammy Bruce, and we'll see how that goes. Okay, thank you very much. And so Tammy Bruce is one of the ones I like to read because to give people a true understanding of what the left is really all about. Tammy Bruce, along with David Horowitz, were former lefties, wrote books, and now they're now conservatives, or at least ersatz, or what refer to as false conservatives. But they've moved away from being lefties, and they explain in their books why it is they were lefties and what happened to change their mind. So. Let's see. Oh, I'm in the no wonder we're in a problem here. So I'm in the wrong place. Let's see. Amazon. There it is. Okay. There we go. Let's see where we're at here. Where is it? Where is it? There it is. The Death of Right and Wrong by Tammy Bruce. And so, anyways, we're in this section where it's called part of I think the first chapter called "The Drumbeat of Death," and so she had talked about no the juries where we were last time is that juries were not doing they were not being responsible. They knew somebody was guilty, but they vote him not guilty anyhow. So and now the drumbeat of death. The drumbeat of support for Mumia Abu Jamal began when the murderers of John Levin were little boys. They spent their lives being conditioned by the rhetoric that black men are so oppressed that even if you do the most heinous thing, you'll be supported. You'll be lied for, you will be celebrated. The message for Montoon Hart's jury was like that. Like Abu Jamal, he was provoked, or perhaps he was even the victim. Certainly he was the victim of a racist, unforgiving society. Black men don't have a choice. They're defending themselves against the monster of white America, the America spelled with 3 Ks. They chant against the monster of that white man's justice system. Support for Abu Jamal continued to gather steam throughout the 1990s. Wherever there were cameras, there were Free Mumia signs. During the 2000 Republican Democratic National Conventions, over 3,000 people marched in each convention city in support of Abu Jamal. Gay rights and animal rights activists, feminists, and Hollywood celebrities all poured into the streets of Los Angeles and Philadelphia that year, demanding that Abu Jamal's death sentence be overturned and that he be given a new trial. Also in 2000, Antioch College in Ohio invited Abu Jamal to deliver the commencement address. That's right, it was recorded over the phone and played for the graduates, faculty, and parents. Besides being overwhelmingly offensive, this represents a much more serious problem. It demonstrates the left's agenda of infecting young people specifically with a chaotic disregard for life and responsibility. After all, colleges invite people they want their students to emulate to deliver the commencement address. Abu Jamal knows this. Here's part of what he, the admired one, had to say to the graduating students of Antioch that day. Think of the lives of those people you admire. Show your admiration for them by becoming them. Isn't that comforting? The left is working to create a nation full of Mumia Abu Jamals. The debacle of the John Levin murder trials is one sign of how we as a society are becoming complicit in this destructiveness. And so Daniel Faulkner's widow, Maureen, has to face her husband's killer as he writes his internet column and delivers college commencement speeches, as he is celebrated on T-shirts and in the media and is compared to Martin Luther King Jr. and Nelson Mandela. She and Danny were newlyweds when he was murdered. Now, Maureen works to make sure that Mumia Abu Jamal is indeed executed, as he was sentenced to be over 20 years ago. Maureen Faulkner was also at Antioch on Commencement Day 2000, specifically to counter the myths that surround her husband's murderer. While Abu Jamal was applauded and adored, his victim's window was sequestered on another part of the campus and surrounded by police for her protection. Welcome to the world behind the looking glass. So, a couple of comments about this is, like she was saying here about in the beginning about black men are so oppressed that they're conditioned, told in the beginning that you're so oppressed that people will lie for you, etc. What this is called, that she doesn't quite realizes this is part of a philosophic theory called determinism, and it is a theory that has been created by the political left, communists, and the theory goes nobody has free will. Nobody has the free will to do what it is that they see fit. That everybody is determined, their actions are determined by forces and powers beyond their control. So in this particular case, the blacks are, their behavior is forced or determined by whites and white racism. So that's where you have to get with this kind of thing. The simplest answer when somebody's confronting you with this type of thing, if it's about Abu Jamal or whatever, is simply to say determinism is dead, because it is. It's contradictory, and it flies in the face of reality, and it's designed to do that. It's designed to create reactions. It's designed to irritate and annoy. It is designed to agitate. And the idea, again, is to create such a ruckus that people will rush into the street with pitchforks and torches and start the worldwide revolution. So, and that's again, the idea with this, with free Mumia signs and celebrities and all of these people, and including the Antioch College, where they allowed him to speak as a commencement speaker, was designed to be provocative. That was the word I was looking for. Provocative. Provoke, 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 provoke. It doesn't have any content. I mean, it's not about, because the university gives a rat's ass whether anybody becomes Abu Jamal or Colonel Sanders, for that matter. All they care about is right now having him as a commencement speaker is outrageous and provocative, and is designed to be so as to same thing with the sequester of the wife of the slain police officer. She gets sequestered and she's surrounded by police and all that. All of that is designed to be provocative. It's supposed to piss people off so that they run out into the streets and start the revolution. Fortunately, we all have the good sense not to do that. We may shake our heads and we may say, gee, that's make the comments that you've heard Tammy Bruce make about it, but we have the good sense not to rush out into the street and try to get involved in fights or riots. But like I said, that's what when you see something that is bizarre, don't ask yourself, what is the left trying to say? Ask yourself, what is the left trying to do? That's the issue. Ayn Rand used to put it, don't examine a folly, ask its purpose, or something like that. It was rather awkwardly put, but again, English wasn't her first language. So that's the way you need to look at it, is ask, what is it they're trying to do? Oh, they're agitating again. Oh, okay. They're trying to provoke people and get people mad at each other. And it doesn't work. It's not working now. Some of the provocations and whatnot now is that, oh, we're on the verge of civil war. Or in the case of one individual, we're already in civil war. And all of the provocations surrounding Donald Trump. And yet, when I go around place to place, I go to the gas station, I go to the grocery store, etc. People are relaxed, they're friendly, they're smiling, they're cooperative, they're helpful. There is no revolution. That's another one of my favorites. You know, if somebody's trying to agitate for revolution, I say, no revolution for you, no revolution for you, no revolution for you, no revolution for you, ha 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 ha. So anyways, because that's the bottom line. There isn't any revolution coming. Never will be. Nobody wants it. The left doesn't even really want it. So, but they bust their buns trying to pretend, put up a good show. Okay, so when I come back, I'm going to be reading from The Philosophy of House. Thank you very much. And let's see what we got. There it is. Okay, let's see. All right, well, we'll give it a go here. So, philosophy in house, and I like the idea of this because, again, it shows the relationship between philosophy and culture, and the influence on people's behavior. Because again, there's more to being conservative or socialist than voting. It has to do with your behavior, the way you behave, the way you think, what you expect from the world, what you expect from other people. If if there was no cultural leftism or idealism, which would be the word I'm looking for here, if there was no cultural idealism, there wouldn't be any socialism. Nobody bother with it. So, um, Shirley House agrees with this, and he's talking about a quote about philosophy is not to be studied for definite answers to questions, and this is from Bertrand Russell, who is making a, as I noted last week, a skeptical statement, a statement about skepticism. See, with this, in the episode Resignation, House finally figures out, oh, I already went to that. Let me see now. Let's see. All right, well, let's go with this. The examined life is the life of a philosopher, a life of reason, and reason is what is distinctive about humans. When Aristotle said that man is a rational animal, he didn't mean that we're always rational and never emotional or instinctive. He meant that humans alone have the capacity for reason. I think that's Socrates' point, then, is that a person who doesn't use reason, who doesn't lead an examined life, isn't realizing his potential as a human being. A life without reason and curiosity, a life where one doesn't seek the truth, is therefore a life no greater than the life of a lower animal. House and the life of reason. It may be true that the unexamined life is a life without meaning and therefore not worth living, but that doesn't mean that the examined life is meaningful and worth living. After all, the nihilists could be right. Maybe no life is ever really meaningful. Maybe no life is ever really worth living. How can we decide? To answer this, we must return to the question of what makes a life meaningful. We must explain the properties that a meaningful life has and then show that the Socratic examined life has those properties. From where we have been so far, and especially where House is concerned, those properties have nothing to do with God, the soul, or the afterlife. They may, however, have something to do with how one feels about one's life, as long as those feelings match up with what we ought to care about, what we ought to feel is important. A couple of things that I want to mention. First of all, about Socrates was that he was the one that developed what was called the Socratic method, in which basically he questioned people. He was the first cross-examiner. He would let people make a statement, and then he would cross-examine them on that statement. And the idea was to, again, point out the weaknesses or the flaws in their statements. And this was supposed to show a tremendous amount of wisdom. One of the big flaws of his technique is that he has to, in order for it to work, he or whoever's using it has to pretend that they're neutral, that they have no dog in the fight. And usually in Socrates' day, when he's questioning people, it's about philosophical issues, deep issues of significance, not only to himself and to the other person that's speaking, but to each and every human being on the face of the earth. So it is laughable for him or anyone else to stand here, have this conversation, have a debate, and at the same time pretend that they're neutral. Well, I don't have a dog in this fight. I don't care how it comes out. Yes, you do. First of all, the other thing that I noticed with the last statement was to say, how do we know? And always the how do we know questions always mean that we're about to take everything we've learned in our lives and maybe going back millennia and throw it in the garbage and start all over again. And that's crap. And it's crap because it's absolutely not necessary. So let's see. Maybe no life is ever really meaningful. Maybe no life ever is ever really worth living. How can we decide? So he's acting as though this is an open question. No, it isn't. Of course life is worth living. If it wasn't, we wouldn't be here. Okay, we wouldn't bother to procreate. If we didn't have the guts to commit suicide, we certainly wouldn't bother to have children. We'd abort every one of them and or kill them at birth if we really believed that life wasn't worth living. So we know that life is worth living because the population of the earth continues to expand. The question now you can ask about is, what is the thing or what are the things that make life worth living? So remember that. It's very, very important. You're going to come up with lefties that are always going to do that. Well, how do we know? And what they're about to do, again, is suggest that you engage them in a conversation in which everything you know about whatever subject they're opining on is going to get thrown in the garbage. Don't let them do it. They say, how do we know? We say, we know by the best answer to that is we know by the evidence of our senses. And also, you can say, if they want to, what was the question on TV the other night is, what do we do? How do we know, or what do we do? Is you have to ask them, what are we doing now? But usually, the how do we know question is always best answered. We know by the evidence of our senses. How do we know whether it's not life isn't worth living? Well, simply let's look around. Is the population of the world increasing or decreasing? Are people still continuing to have children, or are they getting rid of their kids as fast as they can, trying to sterilize themselves? And if sterility doesn't work, then they have abortions or kill the children at birth. Is that what's happening? No. Okay, so then we know that life is in fact worth living. Now, what is it that makes a life worth living? That we can have a debate about. So don't let these lefties get away with that. How do we know crapola? We all know the same way. Okay, we know by the evidence of our senses. So when I come back, it's going to be a couple of jokes, or a joke or two, from the New York City Cab Drivers Joke Book. Okay, thank you very much. Let's see. Okay, so I'm reading from the New York City Cab Drivers Joke Book by Jim Peach, an actual New York City cabbie. He's got his picture on the back of him sitting in his cab, so we know it's authentic. Did you hear about the Polish actress? She slept with the writer. An American black man, an Italian, and a Polish man are sitting at a bar drinking together. At one point, the bartender comes over to them. You know, he says, I'll bet $100 that there isn't 25 inches of dick among the three of you. Three men look at each other, then at the bartender, then they all say, you got to bet. First, the black guy stands up. He lays his joint on the bar, and they measure him. All right, let's try that again. An American black man, an Italian, and a Polish man are sitting at a bar together. At one point, the bartender comes over to them. You know, he says, I'll bet $100 that there isn't a 25 inches of dick among the three of you. The three men look at each other, then at the bartender. Then they all say, you've got to bet. First, the black man stands up, lays his joint on the bar, and they measure him. He's got 12 inches. Next, the Italian stands up, puts his dong out, and they measure him. He also has 12 inches. The black and the Italian look at each other and smile until they look down at the Polish guy unzipping his trousers. As he puts his pecker on the ball, all three men break out in a sweat. He has 1 inch exactly, though, so they win the bet. The bartender gives them $100, and they retire to the booth to divide up the money. The Italian guy says, 3 doesn't go into 100 evenly, so how are we going to split this up? The black guy says, well, since I was 12 inches, nearly half the amount we needed, I think I should get half the money, 50. The Italian guy says, well, I had 12 inches, so I think I should get $50. To tell you the truth, says the Polish man, I think I should get the whole 100, because if I hadn't had a hard-on, we wouldn't have won at all. And on that note, we come to the close of another episode of Story Time. And until next time, thank you very much for joining me. Have a great day.